Hey, what's up everybody and welcome back to News Dose. So, Microsoft just had their quarterly earnings call where some very interesting Xbox details were revealed. The Xbox Series continues to have a record-breaking generation and really just an overall big win for the company. So we will talk about that later on today and exactly what's happening there, as well as PlayStation Plus, which announced some new games. In fact, some really good games at that, and I think that if you're a PlayStation Plus premium subscriber, you're definitely going to be pretty happy here. Though, how they're actually releasing these games, that's where it becomes a little bit more odd and unexpected. So we will talk about that one as well. To start the day off, though, we did get an update for Grand Theft Auto 6 thanks to a new report by Bloomberg. They took a deep dive into how Rockstar is running the company, their culture and how it's shifting, and then, of course, the much-anticipated GTA 6. I do recommend reading the entire article. It was very well written and can give you a closer look into the development over at Rockstar. But obviously, one thing that gamers are keying in on right now are those new GTA 6 details. I mean, GTA is one of the biggest franchises ever, with GTA 5 selling a whopping 165 million copies. It is absolutely insane what that game has done. So the 6th game might actually break the internet when it finally gets revealed, as fans, they have been starved by any type of official information. Well, at the very least, thanks to Bloomberg, some of its premise has now leaked online, and according to them, it will feel very different than previous GTA iterations due to the transformation of Rockstar in recent years due to worldwide events. As for its setting and premise, it apparently is inspired by Bonnie and Clyde, which is actually kind of interesting in terms of its story. I think that they could really tell an engaging story inspired by something like that. However, there will be a pair of protagonists, though, continuing what GTA 5 did, and one of those characters will include the first ever playable female character, which is a Latina. Again, this will kind of lean into that Bonnie and Clyde inspiration. It'll also be set in a fictional Miami, which aligns with those rumors that it's returning to Vice City once again, though interestingly enough, it's stated here that its world will evolve over time. It apparently will add things like new missions and cities on a regular basis, so this will be a live service game as you will. As for its release date, and I know this is the big question on everybody's mind, unfortunately, it still sounds like it's a little ways away. According to people interviewed for this article, they're saying that they expect its release to be at least 2 years away. So there you have it. You know, GTA 6 might not necessarily be right around the corner per se, but at least we got some new details today, which is more than what we knew yesterday. Let me know though, do you like what you're hearing so far regarding Grand Theft Auto 6? Next up, we do have a big delay to talk about, as it's being reported that the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake is in quote-unquote serious trouble. Now, this game was revealed last September, though up to this point, not much was necessarily known about it other than it's a PlayStation-timed exclusive developed by Asper Studio. But at the time, that was good enough because the original Knights of the Old Republic is often viewed as one of the greatest Star Wars games of all time. So a remake on paper sounds absolutely fantastic, but unfortunately, it's reportedly now been delayed indefinitely. This is according to Bloomberg and sources close to the project, which stated that a finalized demo on June 30th was shown to Sony and Lucasfilm. Apparently at the time, everything was on track, but I guess Sony and Lucasfilm wasn't happy with the demo because during the following week, they fired both the design director and art director, all while putting the development on pause, stating that the game wasn't where they wanted it to be. So yeah, unfortunately, the future of this remake is kind of up in the air for the time being. It doesn't sound like it's been outright canceled, which, I mean, you can kind of take that as good news, but there are some questions regarding who's going to develop it, what direction it will take, and just an overall timeline as to when it'll actually release. Some developers in this article did note that even though it was originally planned for 2022, with everything that's happened now, 2025 might be a more realistic release. And I guess you can just kind of take that as a silver lining. Yes, it's been delayed indefinitely, and that's definitely not a good thing, but as long as it doesn't get canceled, fans that have been eagerly awaiting a remake can remain hopeful even if it still is years away. And hey, maybe it will turn out to be even better because of that. I mean, we don't know as of yet, but I guess we'll just have to kind of wait and see, but definitely still very unfortunate. Let's go and talk about Xbox though, as Microsoft just had their quarterly earnings report, and Xbox had some very interesting results. Now, when you first look at the numbers, you'll see that Xbox is down in multiple categories, including hardware, that's down 11%, content and services revenue is down 6%, gaming revenue is down 7%, and then Xbox Game Pass subscriptions are actually up. On the surface, that doesn't necessarily sound great, but a decline was expected with how good they've been doing since the launch of the Xbox Series, and there's also an ongoing supply constraint that the entire industry really is dealing with at the moment, which we'll come back to here in just a little bit. Moreover, though, this was actually apparently Xbox's second best Q4 in history, assuming $3.45 billion in quarterly sales according to an independent marketing analyst, Dom's Playing. That there alone highlights another really strong quarter for Xbox, and this is where things start to get really interesting. As I just noted, the Xbox Series has had a really strong generation despite the ongoing chip shortage, and so much so that the Microsoft CEO, Satya Nadella, stated that hardware sales continue to be high in demand and that it remains their fastest selling console in history. That means that it sold more than the original Xbox, more than the Xbox 360, and more than the Xbox One in the same time frame, which is incredibly impressive when you consider what's happening in the world right now. Despite all that, though, Xbox is still breaking company records, and with the Series X specifically, that console is still selling out, and I imagine that they will continue to have a big holiday in 2022. What I think is really special about this, though, is that Xbox, they really haven't brought out the big guns yet. I mean, yes, they've released a few big exclusives like Halo Infinite, they brought out Forza Horizon 5, that was a fantastic game, but it looks like 2023 and beyond, that's when we'll really start to see them bring their big first-party games a little bit more frequently. So I think even when hardware sales start to stabilize, because they have such a bright future, I think momentum will continue to carry on long after that. I think because of all their acquisitions, their upcoming strong library of first-party titles, the power of the Series X, the affordability of the Series S, and Xbox Game Pass and just how amazing that is, I think that all has really given Xbox as a brand huge momentum and are some of the reasons on why not only the Xbox Series continues to outpace their previous consoles, but also I do fully expect that momentum to carry over long after hardware sales stabilize. They really have bounced back this generation, and actually about that, Satya Nadella had one more very interesting thing to say as he let it be known that the Xbox Series has been the market leader in North America for 3 quarters in a row among next-generation consoles. In other words, that means that the Xbox Series has outsold the PlayStation 5 in North America over the last 3 quarters. Now, it's not outselling the Switch, so don't get that confused or anything, but this does take me back to what I mentioned earlier. Both the Xbox Series and the PlayStation 5 are dealing with that chip shortage. That's one reason that you might see a downward trend year over year as supply has been very difficult to secure. However, what we're seeing here is that Microsoft has done a very good job at supplying the North American region. This is a very competitive territory for them, so they're putting a lot of resources here, and as we're seeing here, it's definitely paying off for them as of recent. This, though, is a big win for Xbox in the short term. Now, we'll see how all this plays out in the long run once these consoles are a little bit more readily available, but as for today, Xbox has done an outstanding job this generation, and I personally think that this is great to see. I always like to say it, but competition breeds excellence. And with all the big 3 doing great this generation, yeah, I think that this could possibly end up being one of the best generations for all gamers. Now, we do also have some PlayStation Plus games to talk about today, as Sony announced their August lineup, which actually includes a great lineup of games, but also was a little unexpected. The reason I say that is because it's not as straightforward as you might have originally thought. Previously, I think the belief was that PlayStation Plus Premium was for classic PlayStation titles and added benefits like playable demos. However, that's apparently not the case at all, as Premium, which goes for $120 a year, actually will be getting exclusive titles after all. That means that your 3 subscriptions will be further divided than originally believed. So just kind of keep that in mind as I talk about some of these upcoming games. So for PlayStation Plus Essential subscribers, you will get your monthly games that includes Yakuza Like a Dragon, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2, and then Little Nightmares. That's actually a great lineup of games, all of which are high quality titles. Then for PlayStation Plus Extra, we'll get all of that, plus Yakuza 0, Yakuza Kiwami 1 and 2, and then Yakuza 6. Lastly, for premium subscribers, you get all that and Yakuza 3, 4, and 5 remasters. So there you have it, and like I said, this is a great lineup of games, even though it's a little odd. We'll kind of get back to that here in just a second. But the Yakuza franchise is absolutely amazing, and as I've said on this channel probably 100 times over, these are among the very best story-driven single-player experiences that you can play. They have a lot of atmosphere, the beat-em-up gameplay is fun, and they just have some of the most thrilling stories with twists and turns around every corner. I cannot recommend these games enough. But the big story here, though, is that PlayStation Plus, yes, is splitting all of these games up depending on what tier you're subscribed to. That's where things start to get a little strange and unexpected. Now, I don't know if they'll do this regularly going forward, but right now it does suddenly lessen the appeal to that PlayStation Plus Extra tier. I think prior to this, Extra would have probably been the go-to option for $100 a year unless you really, really wanted those PlayStation classics. But if Sony does regularly have games skip out on Extra, then suddenly Premium will be the more attractive option, all while taking away from Extra at the same time. It can even be described as a little convoluted. Like I said, I think that this is a weird situation, but I mean, with that said, all at the same time, if you are a premium subscriber, you have to be pretty happy with this lineup here. Again, it's a great lineup of games. Definitely go play the Yakuza franchise, and for that matter, check out Little Nightmares, which is a great horror 2D platformer. It's an interesting combination that works very well, but with them just dividing all these PlayStation tiers, though, I don't know if I like that move per se. Like I said, it just takes away from PlayStation Plus Extra, and it does make things a little bit more convoluted. But let me know what you all think about this, though. Do you like this idea of splitting all these games up or not? Let me know in the comments below. Moving on, though, we do have a possible update for Hogwarts Legacy's release date. Now, this is just a rumor for the time being, but what's happening here is that fans are now speculating that it could release this December. The reason for that is because fans in the UK who pre-ordered the art and making of Hogwarts Legacy book on Amazon are now receiving an update letting them know that its release date has been changed from December 31st to December 6th. Now, December 31st is an obvious placeholder, we all know that, but you do have to wonder why that was suddenly changed to December 6th, which coincidentally is a Tuesday. Now, the reason that that's important is because games do tend to release on Tuesdays, so this theoretically could be its potential release date. Of course, though, for the time being, this is only speculation and should be taken as such, though do not take this as any type of confirmation. What we do know for a fact, though, is that Hogwarts Legacy is set to release in 2022, barring any type of delays. That's why these release dates are just so important anymore. We just want confirmation that it's releasing in 2022. I will say, though, that I'm not necessarily looking at this particular rumor as concrete information, but at the same time, given just how huge this IP is, and with December being a big month for game sales, I could definitely see them planning for a December release. I do think that that could be realistic. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all, do you think Sony will actually acquire Square Enix as rumored? And as you can see here, a lot of you all do actually believe this will happen, with 37% of you saying yes, while the majority still believes that no, this will not happen at 52%. So, I mean, as you can see here, there's a lot of different opinions regarding this topic, and I can understand that because there's definitely some reasons to believe that this could in fact happen. You know, with Square Enix selling off Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal earlier this year, that certainly seems fishy and could appear as if they're positioning themselves to sell. There's also the fact that Sony has publicly stated that they want to acquire more studios, and there was even that rumor yesterday that we talked about. The Eidos Montreal founder noted that he had heard a rumor that Sony was interested in buying Square Enix. Now, with all that said, it's also important to keep in mind that this still, yes, is just a rumor. And from what we've seen over the last few years, these acquisitions, they don't really leak out. I mean, the biggest acquisition ever in Microsoft Activision Blizzard just kind of came out of nowhere. Nobody at all was expecting that because it didn't leak. I can really only think of two acquisitions that did leak, and that was for Playground Games and then Blue Point Studios, though that was more because Sony themselves accidentally announced it early. So really, anytime that you hear rumors for these acquisitions, you always have to take them with a huge grain of salt. With that said, with how the industry is right now, you really can't rule anything out either. And in some ways, Sony and Square Enix, They do make sense. Like I said yesterday, I think that if Sony wants to bolster their PlayStation Plus subscription even further, acquiring a publisher like Square Enix would make a lot of sense. That we're seeing that with Activision Blizzard right now. That's the primary reason that they're acquiring them, not for exclusives, but for their subscription. However, I don't necessarily agree with some people out there claiming that Sony and Square Enix are just this perfect relationship for both parties. That there's where I kind of disagree, and you can actually take a look at Daku's comment here that kind of describes why I feel that way. In the comments, they said, "Unlikely in my opinion. I don't think that Square wants to be under Sony when they release more than enough games who aren't even on PlayStation, such as Bravely Default, Triangle Strategy, and Octopath Traveler." And that there's the thing. I don't think that this will stop a potential acquisition, but I do think that some people kind of forget that they also have a strong relationship with Nintendo as well. You know, Nintendo is incredibly dominant in Japan, and a lot of their smaller games do actually fit Nintendo better. Something like Live Alive HD, that does fit the Nintendo Switch better than what it would on something like PlayStation. All in all, though, for the time being, all of this is just a rumor. We'll kind of see what happens, but I would just say for myself, I think that it's certainly possible, but I'm not necessarily going to hold my breath either. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.